Hello, elementary school students across America and on United States military bases around the world. It's time once again for Michael T. Mondak Reads with yours truly, the eponymous Michael T. Mondak, and I'm back with you on Tuesday, reading one picture book virtually to you, your parents, and your teachers. But I can't do it without a preview as to what I'll be reading. Here it is for this Tuesday. Let's say you and your best friend are planning on doing something on a Saturday together, and they forget, and you get mad about it. How do you work it out? Fozzie found himself in a situation when his best friend Kermit forgot that they were going to go to the Natural History Museum together on it one Saturday, and Fozzie got mad. It's part of the storyline titled Muppet Kids in I'm Mad at You, written by Luis Gico and illustrated by Manhar Chauhan. Let's get going. It was bright and early on a Saturday morning, and Fozzie was excited. Today was the day he and Kermit were going to the Museum of Natural History to see the new dinosaur exhibit. Fozzie tried on 7 ties before he found one that was just right. Hey, Mom, he shouted as he bounded down to breakfast. Remember what today is? Of course I do, Fozzie. His mother smiled at him. Today's the day I'm driving you and Kermit over to the museum to see the dinosaurs. Right, said Fozzie happily as he dug into his bowl of oatmeal. I can't wait. I'll bet dinosaurs have the biggest funny bones in the world. At exactly 10 o'clock, Fozzie went next door and rang Kermit's doorbell. He waited a minute, and then he rang again, and again, and again. Bzzz, sang the doorbell, but nobody came to answer it. In fact, nobody seemed to be home at all. Fozzie paced back and forth on Kermit's steps. He was almost too worried to be disappointed. Where could his best friend be? He knew something terrible must have happened to Kermit. Otherwise, Kermit would be at home waiting for him. Fozzie spent the rest of the morning wandering about around the neighborhood, trying to find out what happened to Kermit. Have you seen Kermit? He asked Ralph, who was delivering newspapers. Nope, Ralph replied. Not since yesterday at school. Have you seen Kermit? He asked Piggy as she jumped rope in the park. No, said Piggy. Is he missing? Have you seen Kermit? He asked Gonzo, who was on his way to the library. Not today, said Gonzo. Is there anything wrong? I'm afraid there might be, Fozzie replied. Fozzie was sitting and worrying on a park swing that afternoon when he heard a familiar voice call his name. Kermit, he said happily. You're okay. Why shouldn't I be? Kermit asked. I've just been over at Scooter and Skeeter's house playing their new computer game. It's great. Fozzie frowned. But you were supposed to go to the museum with me today, he said. Kermit stopped short. Then he shook his head. That's next week. No, it isn't. It's today. Fozzie was certain because he had written it down on the calendar in the kitchen when he made the date with Kermit. But Kermit shook his head again. Nope. Next week, he said again. I'm sorry, but I'm positive. See you later, Fozzie. I promised Piggy I'd go bike riding with her this afternoon. As Kermit walked away, Fozzie began to have a funny feeling. He was sort of hot in his middle and tight in his throat and tingly in his arms and legs. At first, he didn't know what it was. Then he thought about Kermit. Kermit wasn't sorry at all about missing the museum. And he was wrong, too. He had promised to go with Fozzie that day. And then Fozzie recognized the feeling he had in his middle and his throat and his arms and legs. Fozzie was very, very angry. Problem was, he was angry with his very, very best friend. The next week in school, Fozzie kept on being angry. He could hardly talk to Kermit at all, but that made Fozzie feel terrible. He really depended on Kermit. Besides his mom and pop, Kermit was the most important person in his life. And now all Fozzie wanted to do was disappear whenever he saw Kermit go by. What was he going to do? Wednesday night, Fozzie sat at the dinner table, twirling some spaghetti on his fork and staring at his plate. Spaghetti was usually one of his favorite foods, but he wasn't feeling very hungry. Fozzie, his mom said gently, you've hardly eaten a thing for days now. Do you want to tell me what's bothering you? Oh, Mom, Fozzie sighed. I don't know. Kermit forgot about last Saturday and that he said I was wrong, but I know he was. And well, now I'm Fozzie couldn't get the word out. You're angry with him, aren't you? Mom said. And for the first time, too. Fozzie nodded unhappily. I don't think I can be his friend if I feel this way. But not being Kermit's friend is the worst thing I can imagine. I don't know what to do. Have you spoken to Kermit about it? Mom brought Fozzie a glass of milk. Usually, a smart thing to do when you're angry is to tell the person you're angry with. But how can I? Makes me scared to think about it, Fozzie replied. What if Kermit gets angry back at me? Would it make you feel any worse than you feel right now? Mom asked. I don't know. I don't see how it could, Fozzie said miserably. After dinner, Fozzie walked next door to Kermit's house. He stared at the front door for a long time. Then he finally knocked. A very quiet knock. Maybe Kermit is at home, he thought hopefully. But soon he heard Kermit's footsteps padding across the floor. Then the door opened. Fozzie, said Kermit. Hi. Hi, Kermit. Fozzie looked down at his feet. Can I talk to you about something? Sure, said Kermit. Come on in. Fozzie sat down on the couch. Kermit sat on a chair. They both stared at the floor for about 5 minutes. Finally, Fozzie cleared his throat. I'm really hurt, Kermit. He stopped for a moment. No, I'm upset. He paused again. No, the truth is, I'm mad at you. Remember last Saturday when we were supposed to go to the museum? Well, we were. You were wrong. You didn't even admit it or say you were sorry or anything. The more Fozzie talked, the easier it got. I've been avoiding you at school all week. Didn't you notice? I'm really, really mad. Fozzie finished, looking up at Kermit for the first time. Kermit was still staring at the floor. You should be, he said finally in a muffled voice. I was wrong. I just didn't want to admit it because I'm afraid you'd be mad at me. I sort of remembered about the museum, but I just didn't think it was that important. I wanted to see Scooter's new game. Kermit looked up at Fozzie. I'm really sorry, Fozzie. Can you forgive me? Fozzie felt as if he'd been wearing a jacket that was much too tight, and it had just popped out of all its buttons. He let out a sigh of relief. Of course I can, he said. You're my best friend. But Mom was right. I had to tell you how I felt, no matter how hard it was. Otherwise, all that anger would have been stuck inside me, and I wouldn't have been able to be a real friend to you anymore. Kermit looked admiringly at Fozzie. Boy, I've learned a lot about friendship from you today, Fozzie. Thanks. You've learned a lot from me? Fozzie's face lit up. Gee, Kermit, you've never said anything like that before. It's true, Kermit responded. And let's make a pact. From now on, if one of us does something to make the other one angry, we'll talk about it right away. Okay? Okay, Fozzie agreed. That way, we'll always be friends. And they always were. And that, boys and girls, concludes the story. I'll be back with you Wednesday at the same time on the same channel. I'll see you tomorrow.